Good morning and welcome to the 2019 Innovation and Education Breakfast. Thank you all for joining us as we celebrate our teachers and hear from Dr. Maher. I would like to take the time to recognize the First National Bank in Sioux Falls, First Premier Bank and Premier Bank Card, and SDN Communications for sponsoring this event. Please help me thank them. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Allison Smith, and I am the Executive Director of the Sioux Falls Public Schools Education Foundation. Growing up, I loved school. In the summer, when kids were swimming at the pool or going to camp, I was at Lincoln Elementary with my dad, the principal, unboxing textbooks, tempera paint, and construction paper. I'd stamp each textbook cover and label it Property of the Yankton School District, 63-3. I spent hours in a gym that was 95 degrees because they didn't run air conditioning in the summer, counting parental release forms, field trip waivers, and lunch menus for each teacher. Although I haven't become a school secretary yet, I am working to enhance education, and it is my pleasure this morning to share part of our story. I just passed the 1-year mark with the Education Foundation, and it has been a whirlwind year in all the best ways. I had an opportunity to present 53 first-time teacher grants worth $200. I read each innovation and education grant submission, and I visited previous grant winners to see how they're using all of these materials in the classroom. One of the best parts of the job, hands down, was surprising about 40 teachers on prize patrol when we showed up in their building with candy, balloons, and a check to purchase all of the materials that you learned about before you sat down. We had teachers jump out of their chair when we announced their names, and others got a little choked up, overcome with emotion. It truly is like Publishers Clearinghouse for teachers. We couldn't do what we do without so many of you in the room. And first off, I wanted to take a minute to thank all of the teachers for giving our students these incredible hands-on immersive experiences. What you do every day in the classroom matters. Thank you. Thank you to the administrators for supporting these projects in your building and encouraging your staff members to apply. We know that it takes a champion at each school to make this program a success. And finally, thank you to the personal and corporate donors for your incredible generosity. Your donations make these grants a reality for our teachers, and you are the reason students fly drones, travel around the world using virtual reality goggles, and learn skills like teamwork, problem solving, and critical thinking when building robots. Please help us thank all of our personal and corporate donors. As I said, the past 12 months have flown by, and I am excited to work with the board to build on our momentum so that we can close the gap in funding that currently exists for our teacher grants. I am a proud graduate of public education, both K through 12 and college, and my involvement with the foundation is a way for me to pay it forward. At this time, I'll invite Callie, Bosh, President of the Foundation Board of Directors, up to the lectern.
Good morning. So I would like to take just a minute to get some group participation this morning. So if everybody who is an educator would please stand and continue standing. Educators. Thank you. Let's add to that group our administrators. Fabulous. Thank you. What about those who are parents? Parents? Thank you. Or grandparents? Grandparents? Now, anybody who is proud of the Sioux Falls Public Schools. I hope everyone in the room is standing, because we are proud of our Sioux Falls Public Schools. Thank you. You may be seated. It's always good to get a little exercise in the morning. Well, my name is Callie Bosh, and I am chair of the Education Foundation Board of Directors. I work at Eide Bailey. I am a CPA in the tax department, and I have personal ties to the Sioux Falls School District. I am the proud daughter of 2 ninth grade English teachers, and I went to Mark Twain Elementary, Patrick Henry Middle School, and I graduated from Lincoln High School. My oldest daughter, Natalie, is going to be a 2nd grader at Robert Frost Elementary, and my husband, Tyler, is a 6th grade science teacher at Edison Middle School. This morning, I'd also like to thank the sponsors and the individual and corporate donors who make this Education Foundation a tremendous success and who support our programs. Last year, we provided 75 grants to 96 teachers. Since 2008, the foundation has awarded more than 334 innovation in education grants, totaling $451,000. We have supported 562 first-time teachers with grants to help them purchase supplies and materials for their classrooms. And we've also been working to grow our endowment at the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation. And our balance right now, I am proud to say, is around $125,000. Thank you. Now, as chair of the board, I get to work with 14 other fabulous board members to advance our mission, and 6 individuals who work and volunteer on the grants committee. If you are a board of directors member or a member of the grants committee, would you please stand and be recognized for your contributions this morning? Thank you. So if you're not familiar with our grant programs, we have 2 main areas of focus. Every first-year teacher with no prior experience receives a first-year teacher grant to purchase materials for their classroom. The Sioux Falls School District typically hires 60 to 85 of these recent college graduates each year. Thanks to a match from the Mary Chilton chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Education Foundation provides $100, and the Daughters of the American Revolution provide $100, bringing the grant total to $200 for new teachers. We hope to grow this program in the future to $500 per teacher. The second program, and by far the largest part of what we do, are the Innovation in Education grants. Any teacher in the school district can apply for one of these grants, up to $10,000 in funding for materials that are not financed by tax dollars. Educators have used the funds to buy light tables, flexible seating, audiobooks, coding robots, 3D printers, garden growing systems, musical instruments, and so much more. One grant can impact hundreds of students in the classroom and can be used for several years to come. An outside committee of volunteers screens all of the applications using a rubric, and they make the final funding recommendations to the board. And after all the applications are screened, the committee members do not know the names of the teachers or from which schools they are from. It is a competitive process. Once the funds have been allocated, we start prize patrol. Working with administrators, donors, volunteers, and board members, we surprise the teachers who have won the grants. Hy-Vee donated all of the balloon and candy bouquets this year, and if you were at Memorial Middle School this year, when the grants were being awarded, you would have seen Allison trying to get 40 balloons out of her vehicle and untangle them on a windy South Dakota day. Anyone who donates $1,000 or more to the Education Foundation will be invited to go on prize patrol for the 2019-2020 school year. In addition, thanks to the leadership shown by Mike, Cindy, and Callie Huther, we piloted a student success fund this year. The Huther's family $10,000 donation was used to help social workers purchase emergency food, clothing, and personal hygiene supplies for families fleeing domestic violence or for those who are in emergency situations. The school staff members then tried to connect those parents and families with already existing programs in the community. The Student Success Fund also provided GED scholarships to students who couldn't afford to take the test. Even with funding the new teacher grants and our education and innovation grants, there's so much more we can do as an education foundation to help students in our Sioux Falls School District. In an effort to raise additional dollars this year, it is my pleasure to announce for the first time details about Public School Proud. It is a student showcase and a reverse raffle event the Education Foundation will be hosting this November 7th at Raven Industries. The foundation will be featuring students from our high schools. The culinary arts students from CTE Academy will be preparing and serving the appetizers, and students in music and dance ensembles will be invited to perform as our entertainment. Tickets are $100 each, and that includes entrance to the event, appetizers and desserts, drinks, and a chance to win half the pot of the ticket sales or donate it back to the Education Foundation. This event is currently sponsored by Vance Thompson Vision, Cutler Law Firm, First Dakota National Bank, and Raven Industries. If you're interested in attending this event, there is a sign-up sheet on your table, and so write your name on it, and a member of the foundation will be contacting you. It's just a sign-up sheet. It just shows your interest in the event. It's not committing you to go. In a moment, we'll hear from two of our innovative educators who are our newest grant winners. But before introducing them, I just want to take a minute to share how proud the Education Foundation is of our teachers, our administrators, and the staff of the Sioux Falls School District, and their impact on our children, grandchildren, and our students. So we encourage you to share why you are proud of the Sioux Falls School District by sharing a story, a memory, or a favorite teacher from your school years. Share it to your social media site, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, to tell the community that we are #PublicSchoolProud. So without further ado, we'll get to the heart of this program. You'll be hearing from two of our recent grant winners and how they'll be using the materials that they purchased in their classrooms this upcoming year. So our first speaker received $2,600 for her grant, Adapted Toy Lending Program. So please help me welcome Christine Smith.
Who doesn't love Elmo, right? Thanks for inviting me to speak this morning, and thank you for awarding me the grant. My name is Christine Smith, and I'm an occupational therapist in the Sioux Falls School District. Christine Carlson and Brad Brockmuller are the educators out at the CTE Academy that are helping me with this grant, and one is on vacation and the other one is at a conference, so they weren't able to be here today. Just a little bit about what I do. This is the start of my 19th year in the school district. I work with early childhood students, elementary students, middle and high school students. And the students I work with, excuse me, all are on individualized education plans and have some special need to be successful in their school day. So I help them with their fine motor skills, self-help skills, and I also do a lot of material adaptations, which is connected to this grant. I also do consulting with teachers. I'll have a lot of teachers ask me, hey, you know, the student I'm really struggling with, what should I do to be able to make this material accessible for them, because they might have limited movement and those types of things because of whatever physical disability they might have. So I do a lot of consulting with teachers. Oops. So just the highlights. To purchase 35 to 40 toys and the supplies necessary to adapt them, so they are accessible for those special needs students that I mentioned. And I also, the money would be used to purchase the switches. And this is a switch. When you think of a switch, you might think of a light switch, but this is just one type of switch. There's several other types, and that would be a whole nother presentation, right?
I'm sorry, but we can't hear you.
Okay.
And we really want to hear you. So
Okay.
can you talk in? Thank you.
Sorry.
Is that better here?
Yeah. I didn't even know it was on. Sorry. So the toys will be modified so that switch connects to the back of the toy. And why not just buy toys that are already adapted? Well, they're 3 to 4 times more than just the cost of off the shelf. So this cord that connects the switch is $1, right? So I can get a lot more toys for my money and get them out to more students. So that was one reason why I'm not buying them already adapted. So then once the toys are adapted, I'll create a list, and they'll be available for checkout similar to library books. So teachers that have students with special needs or limited mobility can just contact me, hey, I want a couple toys this month. I check them out to them, they return them, and then they can get new ones and different ones. So they're not stuck with just one toy, because they are pretty expensive for the teacher to buy one toy for their classroom. That might be half of their classroom money that year. So this way they have a variety of toys. And then a little bit about adapted toys. Children learn through play, but not all children have equal access. Switch toys are a form of assistive technology, and it can further develop cognition, language, motor planning, and play skills. And it provides learning opportunities for those students who are unable to interact with toys due to that physical or cognitive disability. Again, like I talked about, some students have really limited mobility, so we might position the switch at their cheek or their temple, and then that way they can activate the toy and they can be able to play like other kids in their classroom could. It teaches cause and effect for students who are learning to use a switch. And then I think the most important part, you're just hitting a switch, right? Well, it can lead to further, more purposeful, it can lead to using to learn a switch purposely can lead to more advanced use of assistive technology, like communication devices. I've seen students be able to use switch scanning, and it scans through a communication device, so they're able to communicate their needs and wants to the teacher, to activate a computer. So it's really seems basic, but it can lead to much more advanced use of assistive technology. And I think one of the parts I'm most excited for is working with Brad and Christine out at CTE. And those students out there, I met with them in February and kind of proposed, hey, do you think you could help me do the adapting? Because this is kind of a lot to undergo myself. And they were wonderful, so encouraging. I had suggested 20 toys, and they're like, no, let's do 40, because we have 40 students. So every student will be able to adapt a toy. They're required to complete this type of wiring and soldering assignment anyway. So why not make it purposeful and meaningful to them and helping students in return? So I'm really excited to get out there and work with them, but I'm also excited to see teachers implement these toys in their classroom and the kids using them. So here's one picture of some toys, but I have the other 20 toys are in my living room right now. So, we just have some really, really talented teachers and students in our school district, and it's really cool to see see that happening and that work being done. So thank you, and I'll be over there if anybody wants to come play with toys when we're done.
Thank you to Christine. Now I would like to invite up Britt Sampson, who is one of our grant recipients this year. She won a $5,300 grant for virtual reality goggles. Please help me welcome Britt. You are welcome.
Good morning. I would like to say thank you so much to all of you for your donations, for your support. It means so much. I've got the virtual reality goggles over here, and I'm so excited about the possibility of these in the classroom. The possibilities really are limitless. They can be used not just in foreign language, where I'll be using them, of course. A few of you stopped by, and I took you to Berlin. We stood in front of the Brandenburg Gate. If anybody else would like to check it out, it's like you're standing right there. And I'm really excited about this for my kids who will never be able to afford that opportunity. So that's a great chance for them to experience what so many of us can, and they'll never be able to. To give you some idea of the impact this is going to have on my students, I have one young man. He's struggled in school a little bit. And so he took my German 1 and 2, and he has success in my class, but he can't take German 3. And I said, oh, why not? And he said, I can't get it in my schedule because I have to take other classes in order to graduate. So I said, oh, that's too bad, darn it. And when he found out we got the goggles, he said, Frau Sam, and he's a big video game player, this kid, okay, I mean, he loves video games. So he goes, Frau Sam, when you get those next year, I can't be in your class, right? But can I come in after school and use them? And I'm thinking, I go to play games or what? Because that's where I'm around teenagers all day. I'm thinking they're talking about Fortnite and stuff constantly, and I'm thinking, I hope he knows it's not what they're for. They can't really, connect to that on the school network. And he said, no. Can I come in after school and you can do with me what you did with class? If that doesn't say something about the power of that for engaging kids, that he wants to come in on his own time after school to try those on. Wow. Sorry. Thank you all so much. I'm just very excited, and if you'd like to check them out, stop by after, and I'll be happy to show you. Thank you.
And I wanted to add one thing about Britt Sampson's grant. So when we go out on prize patrol, we surprise our teachers. We don't give them a heads up. And this grant was especially meaningful because one of our board members, Reese Almond, I saw him over here, back there, he grew up in Huron, South Dakota. And Britt Sampson was his German teacher in Huron. So Reese showed up at Washington High School to announce that Frau Sam was getting the grant. She didn't know that, and Mr. Conrad didn't know that. So that was really one of the best moments we had out on prize patrol. So I just wanted to add that before we move on.
Thanks, Allison. Now I'm going to turn the podium over to Anthony Peyser, and Anthony is one of our newest board members, and he is from Thrivent. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Callie. How about another round of applause for all the work that's going on in the district? So as Callie mentioned, I'm Anthony Peyser. I'm a board member, and I get to go out and work on behalf of the foundation to recruit donations. And this morning I have the distinct opportunity and pleasure to ask you for your support in the work that you see here and the additional grants that we'll see come in the future. So on your tables, you'll find an envelope and a pen. So if everybody would please grab one of those. Oh, Excellent. And if you'll take a moment to look up at the screen, we've broken out a few tangible opportunities in terms of ways you can engage the foundation financially and what that represents to the grant program and obviously the recipients of those grants, what they can buy with it. So we just want to give you a tangible idea of where your money can go. So knowing that we have 188 people in this room, and we know that you're all overachievers because you showed up this morning, we broke it down mathematically, and our goal for this morning is to raise $5,400. And how we came up with that money is, on average, we award grants, and the average grant is around $2,700. And so our goal this morning is to fund 2 grants before we leave. So you think we can do that? Sure. Yes. I'm sorry, what? Yes. All right, there we go. Thank you very much. Okay, so you have your envelope, you have your pen. What I'd like you to do is join me in a brief exercise and a quick story. So the exercise, I'd like you to close your eyes. And I'd like you to think back to your K through 12 experience. Could be 2nd grade, could be 10th grade, anywhere in between. Now I want you to think of a teacher or an educator or an administrator that sticks out in your mind as an inspiration, as someone who challenged you, perhaps asked you a question or gave you a thought process that potentially changed the trajectory of your life. When you have that person's name and you can see their face in your mind, I want you to open your eyes and I want you to write their name on that envelope in front of you. One of my, one of my favorite stories is more of a parable than a story, but, and many of you may have heard it before, but I think it's worth repeating. And it's the story of the beach where the tide has rolled out and left hundreds, if not thousands, of starfish scattered across the beach. And there's a small girl who's walking slowly along the beach, picking up the starfish and chucking them back into the ocean. She's walking along methodically and doing this one by one. And there's a person who comes along who's older and maybe a bit more cynical and says to her, "What are you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm throwing the starfish back in the ocean." And he goes, there's so many. How can it possibly matter?" And she just smiles, a sly little smile, and she picks one up. She chucks it back into the ocean. She goes, "Well, matters to that one." And that's what I want you to take away from today, is that one day in your youth you were inspired by an educator or an administrator, and today you sit in this room with an opportunity to empower a future educator for a future student. And so my hope is that you take that opportunity to donate today and be generous so that we can empower the next generation of educators, the next generation of administrators, and in tune, the next generation of students. So if you take out your method of payment, I have my checkbook here, so I will join you and lead by example. We have credit card capability over here if you did not bring your checkbook or you're short on cash. So we will be able to take your money today. And I'd like you to write out a check. If every person in this room wrote out a check for $30, we would achieve our goal of $5,400. So I'll give you a moment to write out that check and put it in your envelope and submit it in memory of the person who you wrote on that envelope. I'll give you a minute. And as you're writing those out, when you're all finished, if you wouldn't mind sealing your envelope and holding it up in the air, and our board members who will be close to you will come around and pick those up. And at the end, we'll have a tally for you to see if we achieved our goal. So hold them up high, and we'll come around and grab them. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your generosity, and I appreciate your presence here this morning. I'll turn the podium back over to Allison. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for participating in this exercise. If you were able to walk through and visit with our grant winners, you see the caliber of teachers and educators and occupational therapists that we have in this district. And it is truly one of the best things to be able to go into the schools and give those teachers a check so that they can purchase these materials. Like Anthony said, we at the foundation have an opportunity to say yes when the district isn't able to because of cash-strapped budgets. And so it truly is an honor for us to be good stewards of your dollars to support all of our teachers. So we're wrapping up the foundation part of the breakfast, and now we'll move into the second part, and we are going to invite Dr. Brian Maher up here for the 2019 State of the School District.
Well, good morning, everybody. A couple of comments before I really get deep into this. I think as Britt Sampson was up here, she talked about how the virtual goggles were engaging her students. And where did you go, Britt? Oh, all right. I want you to know, I know the tools are important, but I contend the tools will never be the true engaging force for our students. It's our teachers, it's our staff, and I think you saw that this morning. What an honor it is to be here and to be with you today. This is my 5th year already, and many people still call me the new superintendent, and I hope you do until I leave. Because I still feel like the new superintendent. There's a lot of new things happening all the time. And one remembrance I have this morning is the first one of these I walked into in the summer of 2015. And probably a third of this room would have been more than enough for what was a great breakfast even that morning. But as I walked in today, I just went, wow, this is incredible to see all of these faces and to be in this beautiful setting. And gosh, I wish I could walk out of here and play a little golf as well when I was done. Thank you to the Education Foundation. Thank you to the Education Foundation Board of Directors. Your work is substantial, your work is necessary, and your work is appreciated. I want to also thank one other board, the board that I work directly for, the Board of Education. We have 5 board members. Cynthia Mickelson, Carly Ryder are our president and vice president this year. Board members Kate Parker and Todd Tolke are veteran board members, and brand new board member Nan Baker. And I know Cynthia Mickelson and Nan Baker are here, and if any of the other board members are here, please stand and be recognized, and thanks for all of your work for kids as well. Well, what a difference a year makes. A year ago, from the Education Foundation perspective, I think about the bold move that was taken on by the Education Foundation a year ago. And that bold move was to move from a foundation that was functioning and doing quite well to a foundation who said, we can do more, but to do more, we have to hire a full-time executive director. And I think a year ago, I said I supported that concept. Also a year ago, I think I said that I supported the announcement that Allison Strunk would be that inaugural executive director. Sometimes in my position, we do a little bit of revisionist history, but on that one, I don't have to do any. What a great, after a year, what a great indicator of the bold move that has come to fruition to be a great thing. And I don't know that a better person could have been hired than Allison Strunk. So to the Education Foundation Board, kudos on both of those decisions. One year ago as a school district and as a community, we were preparing for a bond election. You remember the bond election that was the largest not only in our city's history but in our state's history. And we were incredibly nervous about the outcome of that particular election. We knew we put in the work. We knew we engaged the community, or at least we thought we had engaged the community. We did that in many ways, but in one way in particular, we did that with a task force that was led by Nan Baker, who wasn't a member of the board then, and Vernon Brown, who has been a longtime supporter. And I don't know if Vernon's here this morning. Vernon Brown, who has been a longtime supporter of the school system as well. And they'd given us compelling reasons to believe that the community answer to our question of will you support a $190 million bond issue would be yes. We certainly knew there was a need, and we knew we had some support. What we didn't know was just how supportive the community would be for that ask. The bond issue passed with an 85.46% yes vote. I have yet to find a bond issue anywhere in this country, and I've asked, with greater affirmation of a bond than the one we experienced here last year. And until and unless I come across information that takes that fact away, I contend that what happened in our community last September 18th was unprecedented. As we put together our list of compelling reasons to come to this community, a great quality of life, thriving economy, et cetera, I think support for education, public and private, by the way, but support for education should be very high on that list, and a compelling reason for anybody to want to move to this community. Well, both adventures, the adventure of expanding the Education Foundation and the adventure of trying to pass a bond issue, were wildly successful. Both were put together with kids in mind, and both will serve this community really quite well for decades. We got a lot going on. Evidence of the goings-on can always be found in our strategic plan. Our strategic plan focuses on 4 areas, and I'll try not to get too bogged down in this, but one area is student outcomes. Here's what that means. That means we continually focus on literacy and a well-rounded education. We take a snapshot of a variety of academic achievements of our students at every grade level. We look at graduation rates. In the area of student outcomes, we do what you might expect that we do. The second area is the area of culture and climate. We strive to help our students cope. We strive to help our students learn, and we strive to help our students thrive. Just yesterday, I was at a meeting with a representative from the governor's office, and we talked at length about how do we help our kids navigate all of the stressors that life throws their way. And I promise you we will continue to look at that as a school district, most likely forever. And in addition, we want our schools to be places of awesomeness, and I don't really know if awesomeness is a word, but it sounds cool. We want our school district to be a place of awesomeness, and we want our school district to be a place for learning and for working. It is easy to remember that our schools are learning institutions. That's what we do. That's why we exist. That part's easy to remember. What sometimes isn't so easy to remember in fact, it's easy to forget, is we're also a workplace for adults. We have over 3,600 people, from a staffing perspective, we have over 3,600 people who receive a paycheck from the Sioux Falls School District. I am happily one of those 3,600. We follow only Sanford and Avera in terms of number of employees in the organization in our city. You see, we truly are a workplace for adults, as well as a learning place for the kids that we serve. And I'm tickled to tell you that each of the last 3 years, our Gallup engagement scores of our workforce have gone up in terms of the engagement inventory. While we're certainly not perfect as an employer, we're trending in a great direction. We want great employees, and we want to be a great employer. That's a primary goal for us. We'll continue to search for the best employees. We'll continue to hire the best folks that we can hire, and we'll continue to do everything that we can do to retain the fantastic folks that we have the honor of working with. We can get better in each area of the strategic plan, but we'll work tenaciously, and we will work tenaciously to do so. A fourth area of the strategic plan that's critical and oftentimes seen with a microscope, and that is our community engagement. And I'll give you 2 examples of many, many, many examples I could give you where we really employ the community to help us figure out what we need to do. The 2 examples would be, one, the strategic planning process. We went through a comprehensive and a robust strategic planning process that manifested itself in a document 4 years ago. That manifesto is what drives what we do today. It has for a good long time, and long before those 4 years, we've been a mission-driven and values-driven organization. But that strategic plan is very specific as to what we're trying to get done. That was one area where we brought in a lot of folks from the community to help us put that together. The second area was an area I've already addressed, and that was the bond issue. I really believe that we nailed this as a community and as a school district. We put the community squarely in the middle of that process. And now I think we have 2 excellent models to look at as we look at community engagement and try to figure out how that should look for our school district. We'll continue to learn from those 2 models as we address an issue of boundaries for this coming year in our school district. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The last area that doesn't always get noticed but is always in the front in terms of strategic planning, and that is facilities and financial management. One area that I think is really important to think about in that particular conversation is the implementation of the bond. You and your neighbors and your friends have entrusted us to successfully implement $190 million worth of improvements to our facilities. It's our goal, it's our duty, and it's our obligation to make sure that that money is used prudently, make sure that money is used wisely, and to make sure that money is used to enrich the lives of kids for years and years to come. There are many moving parts already going in this front. The most visible of those moving parts are projects that are underway. Thomas Jefferson High School and Ben Rifle Middle School. You see the pictures there. Those were fun days of how that implementation is beginning to take place. You see a lot of dirt work moved in those areas if you go around, if you go to those sites. And soon you'll begin to see what is the wellspring of a building life coming from those parcels of ground. We will work hard to make sure that that money is well spent. The next piece that will be that is a part of. Sorry, I lost my place there for a minute. We have many other pieces on the bond issue yet to follow. The bond issue was more than a high school and more than the construction of a middle school. There are many other moving pieces, and we'll make sure that we stay on top of those pieces as well. The next piece that will be widely discussed is the redevelopment of school attendance areas or boundaries. We'll use the lessons learned from the past community engagement pieces to work us through this very complicated issue. We will absolutely engage the community through task force and through community-wide meetings. We want your opinion on this particular topic. We want your opinion to help us maximize and come up with a solution that helps us utilize those resources that we already have, the millions and millions of dollars in facilities that we already have, as well as the buildings that we are constructing. We'll do our very best to apply logic to this incredibly emotional issue. Please wish us well. Also, before I leave this topic on the use of resources, I want to emphasize that we have the lowest tax rate in the area. I think it is vitally important, as we discussed how we use the resources available to us. It's important to know that it's easy to criticize how money is spent, and it's easy to criticize where money is not spent. I contend there are a couple of easy points to review when you're trying to figure out and see just how your dollars are being utilized. One of those data points is comparison, and I'm talking about an apples-to-apples comparison. On that topic, we have the lowest owner-occupied levy in all of the 11 districts that we call our neighbors. By the way, we're significantly lower than the next lowest district. And if you'll look at that chart that's very hard to look at, you'll see it's not because we have the most money behind every student that we have. There are other compelling reasons to look at there. We're not above scrutiny when it comes to the utilization of resources. When entering into that conversation, I would just ask that you please look at the facts in making your decision as to whether or not we're utilizing your money well. Well, soon we'll be in the day-to-day, the throes of what school really is. Just yesterday, I was talking with Britt. Britt is our person in charge of first impressions. By the way, that means Britt sits in the front at IPC, the central office. And by the way, she is spectacular at making a great first impression. Anyway, she told me just how busy IPC has been this week. And I told her, Britt, don't worry about it. It's going to slow down next June. We can't wait for the arrival of students. We can't wait for the arrival of the rest of our staff. I recognize that I'm very biased in my opinion, but I believe we shine when kids are in session, and we will emphasize total student development every day. That's what we do. That's why we have the jobs that we have. So what can we expect going forward? Where are we headed? I'm reminded this year, I was watching PBS here a few weeks ago about the launch of Apollo 11 and the first steps on the moon. I remember watching the first steps on the moon. As I glance through the crowd, I see some of you do remember that, likely remember that as well, and others of you have only read about it or experienced it virtually. But anyway, as I was looking through that, it took me back to when I was a youngster. I don't remember all about it, but I remember the conversation in my home. I remember the conversation in our community. And I remember that this was a spectacular time for our country. The other thing that it hearkened me back to was my days as a physics instructor, and really talking about Newton's first law. And I'm sure you all remember your days as a physics student and Newton's first law. Well, let's remember that together. Newton's first law says that an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless acted upon by an external force, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion, again, unless acted upon by an external force. And I think the reason that I think of the launch of Apollo 11 and I think of those lessons in physics are that when the launch took off, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember when it took off, it was leaving the Earth at about 1.5 feet per second. How slow is that marvelous scientific contraption leaving the ground? Just so unbelievably slow. But then it continues to gain momentum, leaves the atmosphere of the Earth, and then gets into orbit. And at that point, unless it's acted upon by an external force, it's just going at an incredible rate of speed, the momentum of which will be very difficult to stop. I would tell you we have one area that's critically important to our society, critically important to our school district, where we need to look at that, and we are very much in the launch phase of moving very slow. And that's addressing issues of mental health. You might hear us talk about it as social emotional learning. That those two aren't one and the same, but they're very, very directly related. And if you think about that issue, the whole mental health issue, think about it as a societal issue. Think about it as a community issue. It's no surprise, or shouldn't be any surprise, that we deal with that in our public schools. We are a true reflection of what you see happening in our community. Almost always, that's just a great reflection to see. But sometimes it's things that you don't want to talk about, like mental health. And those are some things that we are dealing with, we're working on. We're trying to figure out how do we best support kids and staff. This isn't just a student issue. This is a societal issue. And that means all of our kids, all of our staff. We've got to take care of one another. My son-in-law graduated from the University of Nebraska Medical Center in May. And in May, I had the great pride of watching him walk across the stage. But prior to him becoming Dr. Long, the speaker talked to this group of physicians about their duty, their obligation, their role in society, and how important it was. But he talked about how incomplete their ability to perform that duty would be unless they took care of themselves. And I'm thinking that's true for our physicians, that's true for our teachers, it's true for our administrators, it's true for our students. And so our theme this year in the Sioux Falls School District will be one that I ran across from Margaret Wheatley, so it's certainly not an original thought of mine. And that is, take care of yourself, take care of others, and take care of this place. Take care of yourself, take care of others, and take care of this place. And I think if we can even move 1.5 feet per second on that issue this next year, we'll have a highly successful year in the Sioux Falls School District. That will be our mission. And with your support this morning, and your support to the Education Foundation, and your support to what we do in general, we can get a lot done in the next year. I thank you for all of your support. I know that together we shine much more brightly than any of us shine individually. I thank you for allowing me to be the superintendent of this tremendous school district, and I wish you well as you go forward today.
One of our goals this morning was to be out of here by 9 a.m., so I am happy to report that we have met that, but more importantly, we have totaled the donations that came in this morning, and I am thrilled to announce that we have raised $7,940. Which will allow us to fund 3 teacher grants for the 2019-2020 school year. Thank you so much to all of you for attending the breakfast, for making the donation, and for supporting our teachers and our students. Have a great day.